Good evening and thank you for joining us here on Rwanda Television for the English News Bulletin. We will begin with the headlines. In a significant step towards advancing sustainable development goals in Rwanda, the government of Rwanda and the United Nations held their annual joint steering committee meeting on Monday. Since Monday, doctors from over 20 French-speaking African countries have gathered in Kigali to discuss advancements in research and the latest technologies for treating gastrointestinal diseases. On the international scene in the Pacific Northwest, the world's largest river restoration project has removed electric dams from the Kalta River to help migrating salmons. My name is Olive Nathan. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. Hope you had a productive Monday. Now let's dive in the edition. In a significant step toward advancing sustainable development goals in Rwanda, the government of Rwanda and the United Nations held their annual joint steering committee meeting on Monday. The session provided a strategic platform to discuss the newly developed United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework, and Adam Squizera has more on this.
The annual Government of Rwanda UN Joint Steering Committee meeting brought together high-level government officials and representatives from various United Nations agencies. The agenda focused on reviewing and endorsing the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework, set to be implemented between 2025 and 2029. Sonia Ojelo, the UN resident coordinator to Rwanda, highlighted that the UN will support Rwanda in putting in place the strategic plan towards innovative projects.
So first, we're looking at food systems, because food systems have everything linked to the transformation of the economy. We're looking at jobs and the social protection, because it's about skills. How do you equip people with the skills for the new economy, the gig economy? We're looking at education. How do you transform the educational landscape in Nigeria? People say that the jobs of tomorrow are not even known. So what is it we do today to prepare people for that tomorrow? Then issues around digitalization, cuts across every aspect. Everything we do, digitalization will cut across. Energy. Without energy, what can you do in the country? You can't do anything without energy. How do we support energy access and energy affordability? Climate change, biodiversity, loss and protection. All of these issues around protecting the environment, climate smart agriculture, new seeds. So where do you want me to start? How many hours do you have? So as a UN system, we are fully embedded in these strategic areas of socio-economic transformation for Rwanda, linking to transformational governance, quality of service delivery for the government. So we've put it in it around about $1 billion that we hope to mobilize and spend over the next 5 years. And that will be complemented by our support to different partners, different institutions, to also leverage financing that they may have or they may be able to raise to contribute to the socio-economic transformation of Rwanda.
Key discussions also highlighted the role of the UN agencies, including UNICEF, UNDP, UNFPA, and WFP. Through the newly approved country program documents, these will support initiatives in education, health, economic growth, and food security, as Murangwa Yusuf, the Minister of Finance and Economic Plan, highlighted.
Expect to achieve a lot, especially because the UN program in the next 5 years has been aligned very tightly to our NST2 program, and given the experience we've had working with the UN in the previous years, it's very promising that we should be able to achieve what we intend to achieve. The UN has committed to mobilize almost $1 billion for the next 5 years, which is very impressive.
The cooperation framework emphasizes inclusivity, innovation, and accountability as cornerstones for success. With this partnership, the government of Rwanda and the UN reaffirmed their dedication to advancing sustainable development and improving lives across the country.
Now to health matters. Since Monday, doctors from over 20 French-speaking African countries have gathered in Kigali to discuss advancements in research and the latest technologies for treating gastrointestinal diseases. Rwanda's Minister of Health, Dr. Sabin Sanzimana, emphasized that these diseases are on the rise, emphasizing the importance of prevention and early diagnosis to address the growing challenge.
by'abantu banywa n'ibyo barya byangiza iyo nzira y'ibiryo cyane cyane haziramo za kanseri
In the past, there were diseases that were considered a death sentence, like HIV. Now people can live with HIV, and today the equivalent of HIV is cancer. I compare HIV to what it was 15 years ago. Contracting HIV meant death. Currently, when people receive a cancer diagnosis, everyone thinks of death. But we can change this understanding, and you are already working towards changing it. Colon cancers, for example, can be detected through the presence of polyps. These can be removed, and we can delay or even prevent cancer. This can be done with a diagnostic endoscopy every 5 years. In our country, in our ministry, and according to our statistics, I believe RBC, the Rwanda Biomedical Center, has presented to you, Rwandans are primarily being killed by three main things: cancer, cardiovascular diseases, and diabetes with associated conditions. These are the three leading causes of death in our population. This is something that did not exist before. In the past, it was HIV/AIDS and related conditions, opportunistic infections, malaria, tuberculosis, and things like diarrhea affecting children, among others. I am referring to infectious diseases, but also preventable diseases. Most diseases are preventable, but they are also associated with poverty, a lack of diagnostic infrastructure, and environmental factors. There are also diseases transmitted from person to person. Things have changed because life expectancy has changed as well. We now see that cancer, cardiovascular diseases, and diabetes, along with related conditions, are surely going to be the three top priorities for everything we do. The question is, how do we adapt our health systems to address these three leading causes of morbidity and mortality in the population? First, we need to change the way people live, their lifestyle, what they eat and drink. If we do not change this first step, we will face even greater challenges in gastroenterology, cardiology, imaging, and other medical specialties focused on repairing the damage caused by long-term exposure that could have been prevented.
bakigira ku bintu bigezweho ntiyige mu magambo gusa yajya kujya mu bikorwa akabura igikoresho.
Now to other matters, the Eastern Africa Standby Force has 8,000 trained individuals from its 10 member states. These were trained in the 33rd policy organs meeting taking place in Kigali. Prince Manzi has more on this.
The force consists of military personnel, police, and civilians from Eastern Africa. The force has existed for the last 20 years. The director of the Eastern African Standby Force Secretariat, Brigadier General retired Paul Kahuriye, affirms that the force has over 8,000 personnel on standby to support where it is necessary.
That is not to say we have not been able to do. We have done a lot. We have trained the numbers. We have more than trained in our reserve 400 civilians, for instance. We have civilians that can take up tasks in the mission in peace support operations. We have also trained police in excess of over 600 that can be individual police or that can take up leadership roles in peace support operations. We have also trained the military staff officers, over 800 of them. So we know in our database, we have in each of these 10 member states, we have staff officers that can be mobilized to go and of course attend to any situation within these member states. And therefore, in total, we have a force of over 8,000 that can be mobilized to attend to any peace support operation within our region.
The Eastern Africa Standby Force carries out various activities, including teaching the youth to instill peace and cultural values, as well as environmental conservation and support for the needy. The deputy spokesperson of the Rwanda Defense Force, Lieutenant Colonel Simon Kabera, tackles on the benefits Rwanda has in having members in this force.
First of all, being a member of the ESF, East African Standby Forces, it is an opportunity. And secondly, the objectives of this organization are also attract the Rwanda Defense Forces to be part of the membership. So the expectation we have, of course, this we have been Rwanda has been a member state to this East African Standby Force, which this East African Standby Force, you know, it has objective of intervening where there is insecurity, whether it's in order to restore the stability where they need be into the member state. Part of this organization is one of the achievements.
The Eastern African Standby Force has 10 member states, namely Rwanda, Burundi, Comoros, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Kenya, Seychelles, Somalia, Sudan, and Uganda. The 33rd Policy Organs meeting aims to focus on advancing the readiness of this force for regional peace and stability. Prince Manzi, RwandaTV News.
Thank you, Prince, for the details. Now to other matters. Congolese refugees residing in the Kiziba camp in Karongi district have expressed their gratitude to the Rwandan government for ensuring their security, which they describe as the foundation of their development efforts. However, they are appealing for the construction of model villages, citing the inadequacy of their current housing, which they say is too small to meet their needs. We have more. Having spent 28 years in the Kiziba camp, the refugees are deeply grateful to the Rwandan government for providing them with security, a shelter, and relief from the persecution and violence they experienced in their country of origin. The government provides us with sufficient security and cares for our well-being through programs aimed at combating poverty. In short, we are truly grateful to the government of Rwanda. A delegation from the Rwandan Senate's Foreign Affairs, Cooperation and Security Committee visited the camp to assess and oversee the implementation of strategies aimed at integrating refugees into the country's development efforts in line with the 1951 Geneva Convention. The refugees acknowledged the benefits of these strategies, highlighting their involvement in various projects designed to enhance their livelihoods and promote self-reliance. We also receive support from sponsors, and the government helps us connect with these sponsors who assist us in our daily lives. These organizations also provide training that is incredibly valuable. The aid we receive alone is not enough for us to survive, so the training helps us to learn how to create employment opportunities and develop ourselves. However, they appealed for the construction of a model village, citing the inadequacy of their current housing, which they find too small. They also raised concerns about the education of their children, noting that primary and secondary school teachers often leave for better opportunities elsewhere due to low pay, which disrupts the quality of education in the camp. This is also one of the challenges we face. For instance, some people live in very small houses with their entire family. If a family has 10 members, they are given 2 small houses. Due to the limited space, the family often faces difficulties, and the lack of adequate living conditions affects their well-being. What we wish for is the construction of model villages to improve our living conditions. Honorable Ndanyiza Murango Adija, chairperson of the committee, stated that the refugees' living conditions were found to be relatively stable. She also noted that the government is actively working to address the remaining challenges they face. What is most encouraging is that through our discussions, we learned that the refugees are deeply grateful to the government of Rwanda as they benefit from many of the same services that Rwandan citizens receive. What particularly delighted us was discovering that there is a university in the Kiziba refugee camp in Karongi, the Kepler University. The advocacy we are doing regarding housing and teachers is based on issues that are also faced by many Rwandans, and they are not unique to the refugee community. Established in 1996, the Kiziba refugee camp currently hosts over 14,000 refugees, with children under the age of 18 accounting for 48% of the population. According to the camp's management, 17 partner organizations are actively working to support the refugees and improve their livelihoods. Now to more news. RDB CEO Francis Katari has signed a memorandum of understanding with Steve Harvey's Build LLC to promote tourism and investment. The agreement focuses on skills development in film, media, education, health campaigns, and the establishment of an academic institution under the MELT education. To other matters, some visually impaired individuals who have been raped experience deep sadness and grief, compounded by inability to identify their attackers. Unfortunately, they are often misunderstood by their own families, who suppress their voices and prevent them from speaking out. We have more from this. Egidia Kairangwa, a pseudonym used to protect the privacy of our witness, resides in Gicumbi district. Last year, at the age of 17, she was assaulted and abused by a stranger. Gender-based violence against individuals with disabilities, particularly those who are blind, is one of the most devastating experiences they face, especially when the victims become pregnant and the perpetrators remain unidentified. When you are raped by someone and don't even know who they are, the pain is overwhelming. It feels as though you want to die. I too faced a similar situation where someone tried to take advantage of me, but I firmly refused. I was abandoned by my husband, left pregnant, and I can't afford to bring more problems upon myself. The grief in my heart is already heavy, and raising a child alone with a visual impairment is incredibly difficult. In addition to gender-based violence, individuals with disabilities also endure hurtful comments that target them because of their condition. Using offensive terms related to one's disability is deeply hurtful and painful for us. Bonifrid Mukashema, a member of the Rwandan Union of the Blind, expresses concerns that the families of victims sometimes prevent them from speaking out, even anonymously. In some families, individuals with disabilities may go without an identity card for up to 30 years, which denies them their rights. Additionally, they are sometimes restricted from going out, further limiting their rights. In cases of rape, they may not be able to identify the perpetrator, and their families may force them to conceal the incident to prevent it from being discovered, which often leads to the situation being uncovered only at a later stage. The exact number of disabled individuals who have been raped remains unknown. However, Emmanuel Ndaisaba, the Executive Secretary of the National Council for Persons with Disabilities, warns that those who commit these crimes will face severe penalties. A person who rapes an individual with a disability faces more severe punishment. For example, if the law stipulates a sentence of 5 to 10 years for rape, the punishment is extended to 10 years when the victim has a disability. These laws have been enforced to discourage such atrocious acts. The 2022 Population and Housing Census revealed that there are 350,000 people living with a disability in Rwanda. Welcome back now to matters making headlines globally. In the Pacific Northwest, the world's largest river restoration project has removed hydroelectric dams from the Klamath River to help migrating salmon. The project emptied a lake beloved to its surrounding community. VOA has more on this story.
Copco Lake was located in the high desert of Northern California, a 4.8-kilometer-long reservoir created more than 100 years ago when hydroelectric dams were installed on the Klamath River. An oasis long popular for its wildlife and recreation, the scene changed dramatically earlier this year when those dams were removed to allow passage for migratory fish. Freeing the river has been a goal of the Yurok and Karuk tribes and other area indigenous groups ever since salmon, a primary food source, became threatened decades ago. As the river reestablishes itself in its old course, many of those living in the 100 or so homes at Copco are finding their adjustment challenging. Patty Vinico moved here 3 years ago, drawn by the natural beauty. Like many of her neighbors, she opposed the dam removal.
Our whole way of life was changed, almost literally overnight, within 4 days. And it left mud, dead animals, deer, cows, horses caught in the mud. We all hope for a wonderful recovery with trees and wildlife back. I don't think I'll be here to enjoy that benefit because we were told it would be from 7 to 20 years.
Chrissy Reynolds enjoyed vacations here as a child, then moved here full-time in 1997.
Everybody would gather. We would tie up our boats, and have dinner parties out on the lake. We would have fish fries.
The Copco Lake store, now closed, and the community center across the street were the hubs.
We are a very tight-knit community, and to see all these changes so quickly has been really heartbreaking.
Francis Gill and his husband, Danny Fontaine, are at the center of the Copco community, where Gill led the volunteer fire department for 19 years. They were prominent opponents of dam removal, but are now making peace with the change.
I definitely miss the lake, but the river is fascinating, and I can see the potential for the beauty in it in the future.
But loss of the lake has hindered the couple's plans to reopen the Copco store.
With all of this, we just don't feel like it's a good idea.
Now they are leasing the building to the Yurok tribe, who use it as an office for workers involved in the river restoration effort. Once on opposing sides of the dam removal issue, the tribe has been welcomed here, at least by Gill and Fontaine.
They even had a get-together out here with a lot of their employees and camped out on the lawn, and me and Francis put on karaoke for them out here. We had a great time with them.
Like the natural restoration, the community restoration will take time. But there are some promising signs. Matt Dibble, VOA News, Montague, California.
To more news, despite the recent ceasefire with Hezbollah, many residents in the northern Israel are still hesitant to return to their homes, and many say they want to wait and see if this really holds. VOA once more.
Together with more than 60,000 residents of northern Israel, most of Kiryat Shmona's residents were evacuated 2 weeks after Hezbollah began firing rockets at the border area in October 2023. City officials say about 1,000 homes have been destroyed by either direct missile hits or by shrapnel when Israel's Iron Dome missile interception system shot the rockets down. But now that a ceasefire with Lebanon has taken hold, some residents are returning to at least check on their homes.
People are definitely starting to come back to look at their houses, but we're probably looking at a prolonged period of time in which the residents will come back. We have to wait to see if the ceasefire holds.
Achi Natan is one of the 3,000 out of 24,000 residents who stayed in the city since the beginning of the war. He served as an Army reservist in the local security squad. He was fortunate that his mother, sister, and sister's children had already been evacuated when their house was hit in a Hezbollah rocket attack. Natan believes Israel agreed too quickly to a ceasefire with Lebanon.
It was the wrong decision to stop because we don't really feel like it was finished. We pushed Hezbollah back, but we think they'll return and there'll be another October the 7th, this time here in the north.
On nearby kibbutz Daphna, hundreds of avocado trees have been destroyed by a fire sparked by a missile strike. Most of the trees will have to be cut down, says Daphna farmer Magen Shinhav, and the damage will amount to hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It's part of the war, and we're not the only one who suffered, and still it's trees and not humans, so I prefer it will be trees and not casualties,
Like all of the 1,000 residents of this border community, Shinhav's family was evacuated more than a year ago. He says they are waiting to see what happens with the Lebanon ceasefire before they think of returning. But some people are not waiting. Barry and Orit Prague moved back to the kibbutz in June and stayed through the heavy missile attacks in September and October. Their son's house was damaged in one attack.
I came back because I see Daphna is my home. I believe in living here. I want to live too. I was born here. I always grew up next to the border.
Most of the more than 60,000 evacuees who live near the Lebanon border are carefully watching events in nearby Syria unfold. But their most immediate concern is whether the Lebanon ceasefire holds during the next 2-month trial period. If it does, most say they will return home. Linda Gradstein, VOA News, Kiryat Shmona, near Israel's border with Lebanon.
And this brings us close to today's edition. Before we go, here is a quick recap of the stories we've covered. In a significant step toward advancing sustainable development goals in Rwanda, the government of Rwanda and the United Nations held their annual Joint Steering Committee meeting on Monday. distance-minded doctors from over 20 French-speaking African countries have gathered in Kigali to discuss advancements in research and the latest technologies for treating gastrointestinal diseases. On the international scene, in the Pacific Northwest, the world's largest river restoration project has removed hydroelectric dams from the Klamath River to help migrating salmon. And that wraps up today's bulletin. Thank you for joining us for today's broadcast. On behalf of the entire news team, we wish you a productive week ahead. Stay safe.